Ask it, what's it like to be a black kid with a white mom?
Well, I tell you what, it's part of what America's about. You know, we're a melting pot, and what I think it did for me was to give me a perspective that maybe is broader on some of the misunderstandings that people go through, but also an appreciation of everybody's cultures. I mean, it's not just the fact that I have a black dad and a white mom. I've got a sister who's half Indonesian, who's married to a Chinese Canadian. I've got a niece who looks like, she's all mixed up. So when you get our family together, I've said this before, I wrote a book, I've got family members that look like Margaret Thatcher, I've got family members that look like Bernie Mac, and so what it does, what it means is I'm not going to engage in stereotypes about people, because you never know where people are coming from, and I really have learned to believe that everybody has common values and common ideals, and especially here in America, everybody wants the same things. They want a good job, they want to take care of their families, they want health care they can afford, they want to be able to send their kids to college, retire with dignity and respect.
And everybody wants to know this stuff. See, the people here, the young people here who are black, don't know what it's like to be white, and the white people don't know what it's like to be black, and you have a better look at that than anybody.
Well, I think that, as I said before, people have a lot more in common than I think we give them credit for. The part of the problem is our politics fans division. It feeds on it. It's not that it's not there already, but a lot of times it's a convenient way to stir things up. And one of the things that we've tried to do in this campaign, and I think young people are tapped into this, is to say, look, people of different races occupy different situations and have a different history. And we've got to address some of that different history.
Yeah.
But people's aspirations, their capacity for good and for bad, it really is the same. And we're at our best when we join together. We're at our best when we're unified. We're at our worst when we're divided, and when our politics is based along tribal and ethnic lines instead of based on who we are as Americans.
You know that term in politics called the dog whistle, where you say something and certain people hear it and they can't get caught using it, but they know what they're doing? Do you think the Clinton campaign is using a dog whistle by constantly talking about your former pastor?
No, look, I think that...
Are they playing that ethnic card?
I think that's fair game, in the sense that, what my former pastor said was offensive, and I think that in politics, whether I was white, black, Hispanic, Asian, somebody would be trying to use it against me. I do think that it is important to keep things in perspective and to remind ourselves that over the last 2 weeks, we've marked the 5th anniversary of a war that has now lasted longer than World War I, World War II, and the Civil War. I think it's important for us to remind ourselves 4,000 Americans have died, more than 4,000 Americans, that families are now suffering 3-4 tours of duty, putting enormous strain on military families, that people are losing their homes. So the one thing I think about our politics that we need to fix, aside from pushing the special interests that have come to dominate Washington out and let the American people back in, is also not to be distracted and to make sure we're focusing on the big things that are going to make a difference in these young people's lives 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now. Instead of, what was the latest gaffe, or what did this surrogate say or that surrogate say, which really, 3 weeks from now, everybody will have forgotten, but we won't have forgotten the fact that global warming is still a big issue, and a war is still going on, and our economy is starting to slip.
That said, when you hear divisive language, whether it's from your preacher or from anyone else, why didn't you walk out of that church? Why, when you heard that, when you called controversial language, why did you go back and give him $27,000 in contributions to the church? Why didn't you just say, he's on a different side of this fight than I am?
No, but because I think that what's happened is we took a loop out of and compressed the most offensive things that a pastor said over the course of 30 years. and just ran it over and over and over again. Now, there's that other 30 years. I never heard him say those things that were in those clips.
Yeah. But you did say you heard him say controversial things.
Well, but I hear you say controversial things,
But
Chris.
You didn't give me $27,000 either.
Well, no, but the point is, this is a church that's active in AIDS. It's active on all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And so, this is a wonderful church. But as I said, look at the amount of time that's been spent on this today, Chris, at a time when we haven't talked about a whole host of issues that are really going to make a difference.
You know the Republicans will bring it back.
Of course it'll come back, and of course the Republicans will bring it back. But the question is, what's actually going to make a difference in the lives of people right now who are on the verge of losing their homes? What's going to make a difference in their lives?
When did you have your last cigarette? Was that the last time you cried? What was that like? Because that shows, Bush, the president, gave up booze. Yeah. I always thought that was an impressive thing about him. I gave it up. I know how hard it is. You just give it up, cold turkey. What was it like for you, and what advice can you give these kids? You're obviously not going to tell them to keep smoking. Don't start. What is it that it takes, besides a lot of people watching you, which is in your case,
having your wife say on 60 Minutes that if you see Barack with a cigarette, let me know. Look.
No cheating.
No
cheating.
I fell off the wagon a couple times during the course of it, and then was able to get back on. But it's a struggle like everything else, and I think that it's important to just keep in mind. I've got a 9-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old daughter, and I want to give them away in their weddings, and I want to see my grandkids, and I want to set a good example for all these young people here, and I want to make sure that. As President of the United States, everybody knows that I'm going to try to stay healthy. I need you guys to stay healthy, too, because we need to bring our health care costs down.
How many smokers are there here right now? Smokers, stand up.
Oh,
smokers, stand up. Come on, be honest. Come on. Smokers.
Oh, all right, guys.
Talk to these people.
You guys need to get it straight. You guys need to get on the case.
Well, that's a pretty. I applaud this school, a very low smoking school. At least or else a very dishonest school. Let me ask you about it. Any time in this campaign, did you have a chuckle that you just couldn't get rid of? Something weird that happened. It was so crazy that you just went to bed laughing about.
Oh, I think that happens once a day. But then I stopped watching cable news.
Oh. Another set of cards in the back room. No, let me ask you about the campaign. Do you think that you've learned anything? I know you've done a lot of this. This is amazing to meet so many young people and of different backgrounds and to see these smiling faces. It must be the most wonderful experience for you. But what can you say if you had to write another book after this campaign and say, what did I profoundly learn about this country of mine that I really, really didn't know before this thing started? Can you come up with, did you learn anything, or has it just been too fast?
Well, it's been more confirmation of what I had hoped. When I got into the race, I hoped that people were ready for a different kind of politics. I hoped that young people who had been sitting on the sidelines decided now is the time for us to get involved. I'll be honest with you, I didn't expect such an enormous wave. We've seen record turnouts, record participation. You had in Iowa, young people participated at the same rates as people over 60. That's unheard of in the annals of American politics. And so that's been extremely encouraging. How interested people are in what their government's doing right now. And I think that when that happens, good things happen. Our problems always occur when nobody's paying attention, and the fat cats and the lobbyists end up setting the agenda in Washington. And when the American people are paying attention, they hold the government accountable. And it makes an enormous difference, and we actually start solving problems, and that's what I think we can do starting next year.